Right. I just want everyone let you know that my name is Ben Levin. I'm the president of the Cloud Security Alliance of Delaware Valley, or what we call CSA DV. And I'd like to welcome everyone to our first 2025 Lunch and Learn. Today, we're exploring the use of continuous control monitoring, which we call CCM, to strengthen GRC, governance, regulatory, and compliance issues with AI. This presentation is brought to us by RedScale. A few housekeeping rules to go over with everybody in here today. This event will be recorded and will be available to rewatch for up to 30 days via a link to be sent to all registered participants. I will also have a link to download the PDF of the slides deck that are being presented today. So you'll be able to see that. A continuing education certificate will be issued within 2 weeks to all participants who are present for this event. And lastly, we will allow all participants to ask questions at the end of the presentation via chat. So please wait to ask your questions till that. We'll hopefully have enough time to do that. And what I want to do now is introduce our two speakers today is Travis Howerton, a co-founder and CEO at RedScale, and Dale Hoke, Senior Director of Information Security at RedScale. Now I'll hand the controls to our co-hosts to begin the lunch and learn for today.
Absolutely. And thank you for having us. It's always an honor to be with the Cloud Security Alliance. And we're excited to tell you a little bit about how we see AI changing the governance, risk, and compliance, or GRC market, give you a little insight from our perspective, and then kind of show what we're doing in this space as a continuous controls monitoring company to help reinvent it. And so maybe just go a little deeper on who we are and what we do. We'll do some quick intros on our side so you know who's talking to you. And Dale, how about a quick intro from you on sort of your background and how you got into this space?
Sure. Thanks, Travis, and thanks to CSA for having us. My name's Dale Hoke. I'm the Senior Director of Information Security, and I do most of the CISO functions here at RegScale. One of the subject matter experts around federal compliance and operating in that space. Um, Retired Navy vet of 28 years, retired in 2017. Then I didn't get enough pain in compliance in the DoD, so I volunteered to take on more, working for the Joint Chiefs, DoD C5I, doing R&D and compliance there for the coalition networks. Um, and then compliance became very difficult, and I decided to move on and check security operations. Worked at a company called Cyberproof and ended up working for the NYPD for a while, doing security operations center manager for them. And then was introduced to Travis and decided to take our compliance again, and this time a little different as a crusader to try to fix the problem, right? Automate it and hopefully make it easier on folks in the finance and in the federal sector on achieving those rather difficult compliance outcomes. Back to you, Travis.
Sure. And on my end, I'm Travis Howerton. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO here at RegScale. By way of background, I spent 20 plus years in national security, doing a variety of different roles. Retired as the first chief technology officer of the U.S. nuclear weapons program, where we ran one of the more sophisticated and complex risk and compliance programs in the world. Went to Oak Ridge National Lab, led their IT services division for a couple years. And then in my last tour of duty, I was with Bechtel Corporation, one of the largest engineering, procurement, construction companies on the planet, doing digital transformation globally. And so just everywhere I've been has been highly regulated industries, very complex regulatory landscape, and decided we'd set out to try to build the tools we wish we had when we were practitioners in those roles. So I'm excited to tell you a little bit about what we've been up to. And so I'm going to share my screen. We'll walk you through a sort of a quick presentation on sort of who we are and what we do here at RegScale, some of the trends we see in the industry. So confirm you guys can see my screen okay?
Yep.
Good?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
All right. All right. So today we're going to talk about AI-driven compliance. We think we're at this inflection point where things that weren't automatable before are increasingly automatable with AI, compliance as code, and new techniques. And we think it's going to fundamentally reshape cloud security for the future. Everybody we talk to in GRC faces a lot of the same programs, just massive exploding volumes of data. What I've called the cyber Oprah effect over the years, which if you watched Oprah back in the day on the episode, everybody would get a new car, except this time everybody gets a new compliance framework, an AI law, a California Privacy Act, some new set of requirements, and it tends to be an exploding set of regulatory burden that is attached to a fixed number of humans in a cost center in a way that just isn't sustainable going forward. We're also seeing an explosion of AI tools where we think all software is going to be AI enabled in the future. Folks are struggling to get their arms around sort of how do they get the productivity boost while mitigating the security concerns to enable and empower the business. And we're seeing in these highly regulated accounts a lot of hesitancy to not go too fast. Sort of, it's very similar to I'm an old guy. I keep sort of the high and tight military haircut so you can't see all the gray. But back in the earlier part of my career, it was the same thing in cloud, where everybody kind of knew it was the future, but everybody was scared of it for a very long time until they could get their arms around it, get some standards in place, figure out how to operate it. And so if you look at sort of our last survey we did on sort of state of the union for continuous controls monitoring, only about 18% are currently using AI in this space. And we're going to talk to you about why we think it's a game changer, which means 80% of companies today that we talk to are leaving a lot of value on the table of what they could be doing in this area. Also, compliance gets a bad name in the industry. It's often seen as a bureaucratic burden. Oftentimes the business sees it as a blocker. I used to always joke that cyber puts the no in innovation because we're just always so quick to find some reason to say no about why we can't do this or that. And at the same time, the business is very hesitant because of all that to give the compliance and risk teams the money they need to do their job adequately. And so the average cost of compliance is about $5.5 million, but the average cost of non-compliance is about 3 times that. So it's sort of cutting off your nose to spite your face, although we don't always tell that story well. At the same time, while compliance doesn't guarantee good security, it, as Dale would often say, it's a roadmap to good security. And so doing it well will help you prevent breaches, which are increasingly costly and frequent. Also, whenever you're breached or you fail an audit, it just kind of kills all the momentum in your company. Whatever you thought you were going to do as a CIO or CISO that year gets circumvented by trying to recover, mitigate the damage, deal with all the corrective actions that come out of just not doing it right the first time around. Sort of into that, we see sort of this new frontier for GRC programs. If you listen to Gartner, they would say it's a $50 billion market and growing. But if you added up sort of the software spend of every big GRC company on the planet, you're probably lucky to get into the $5 billion range, which tells you that the market's driven 90% by services, which makes sense to me. Everywhere I've been, we had a huge team of internal folks, or we hire an advisory firm, or we use one of the big 4 consulting firms to do this kind of work, or an audit firm to do this kind of work for us. It's very, very services heavy. And so for most of my career, you want to automate, but most of the controls in these risk and compliance programs aren't technical. Only a subset are technical. So they don't lend themselves well to traditional automation approaches. With the rise of generative AI, the things that were administrative, that typically required the human to look at evidence, to read things, to synthesize data, to write a report, turns out AI is really good at that. So our thesis is that this is going to be one of the first markets that's heavily disrupted by AI because the technology is at a readiness level where it can do many of these things. And then you can take many of these dollars, put them back in your pocket to focus more on operational excellence and security, try to get as much risk and compliance outcome as you can for free by just automating as much of the manual overhead as humanly possible. At the same time, the rise of the cloud and these ephemeral real-time systems I would argue it's not good enough anymore to check these things once a year, once a quarter, take a random sample and just hope you catch the bad thing that happened. I always joke about trying to not be invited to meetings where I have to explain why I'm not stupid. Uh, it's almost never you do something stupid on purpose. It's somewhere at some scale of an org, somebody will do something stupid. You won't know about it until you fail an audit or you're breached. CCM offers the ability to see that stuff faster and in real time. And at the end of the day, this can be an enabler. If you can do these things faster, better, cheaper than your competitors can do them, you can get into new markets faster. You can reduce your cost basis and give yourself a competitive advantage. And so now I wanted to, having done just a little bit of lead in, wanted to let Dale give you a practitioner's perspective. Not only just about sort of what RegScale does in this space, but also he is our customer number one. So as a practitioner who's using RegScale to get our certifications like SOC 2, FedRAMP, et cetera, what his experience has been like using AI, other things that we do in the CCM space, and sort of what it's meant to him. And with that, the floor is yours, Dale.
Thanks, Travis. So, the first and foremost, compliance is complex, right? And it doesn't translate very easily to people that aren't doing it every day. And I think that we've all experienced that. What does this control? What is this control actually saying? What is this control actually doing? So, in our RegML, which is the RegScale machine learning tool, we have explainers. So, explainer allows us to understand exactly what the compliance, what the control is asking for. So it bridges knowledge gaps. I mean, compliance is not really where people just jump in and hey, I want to be a compliance analyst, right? So a lot of times you either get junior guys or people that don't have a lot of compliance experience that need to understand what it is that they're doing. So through the use of AI, we ask the AI, explain this at this role, a compliance analyst, or explain this to a CISO, or explain this to an engineer. And then it allows them to explain exactly what the control is trying to capture, right? What data is needed to do a good implementation statement, and what are the goals of that particular control and any framework. So, and it can be applied to NIST CSF, it could be applied to SOC 2, it could be applied to ISO 27001. You ask the AI to explain it, and then you have a good starting point, which I've seen as being invaluable, right? A lot of times you get new guys that need to understand what they're doing rather than asking their managers. They can look first, so it empowers you to find out the answer first and then approach the control from the desired point of view. I can't tell you the amount of time as the manager this has saved me from my new guys having to understand the control, and I don't have to hop on an hour-long meeting to explain the family group or what you're trying to do. It just simplifies the training process and really starts to change the thought process for folks on what compliance can be.
Next slide.
Yep. Extractor to me is one of our more powerful tools. So what Extractor does is, and we all have policies, right? Some of us have policies we've been reusing from one business to the other. I think somebody wrote a group of policies 25 years ago, and we as an industry have been recycling them over and over. But how do I get that policy as code? How do I get that data translated from my written word into my security plan? Well, this normally becomes a cut and paste exercise, a stare and compare. I have this access control policy. It covers all of these different access controls that are listed in my FedRAMP paperwork or in my SOC 2 or in my PCI DSS. And then I have to show evidence against it, right? Extractor reviews the policy, brings out all the details against an identified set of controls, and then tells you that this statement in your policy could be applied to this control and gives you the ability to select it. Why does that matter? I can't tell you the amount of times that I've had to stare at a policy and pull out and extract data and put it into a control statement, right? So now you can derive all your compliance documentation from what the work you've already done. You don't have to go through the manual process of finding the policy, and then having it all interpreted for you. If you're a control owner, you can now use the extractor to grab that out. And it just, I can't tell you the amount of time you save, right? So use an extractor to get my baseline control implementation. That normally would take, we'll use AC2 to pull all the FedRAMP AC2. It took us the better part of 8 hours to find and laterally move all of that data. Use an extractor, and in about 15 minutes, I had verifiable source for all the non-technical control implementation statements, and I was able to write them over into the platform, and then use our author to write the actual implementation statement, which we'll talk about here. So everybody puts a ton of work into having policies, right? And then you have to tune your policies, and the policies are then auditable. This way, you're minimizing the amount of manual, intense labor to bring that into your plan. Next slide, Travis.
Yeah, and this isn't just for policies though, right? So like when we got our SOC 2 and then went to FedRAMP, does it help you reuse control statements you've already written maybe somewhere else?
It does. So you could laterally pull in, and there's a couple ways to reuse those statements. Using extractor, you can upload a plan that it will review the plan and then correlate that for you into the new SSP. Then other things that it does is there's procedures or potentially workflows that you follow that are also procedural and have to be spelled out in evidentiary, right? So all of your documentation that you have for your compliance program can be run through extractor and then used in your control implementation statements. So RegScale, and I think everywhere, you want to work once and apply it across as much of your security plans and evidence requirements as you can. And extractor allows you to do that. It's a monumental time savings. If you start talking about the compliance information that you pull strictly from policy, right? That could take you in upwards of 3 or 4 months just by stare and compare if you have 1 or 2 people doing it. If you use extractor, now those 1 or 2 people aren't doing the stare and compare. They're validating the data, which is a huge time and cost savings for any compliance team.
Yep. Thank you, Dale. Let's talk about author.
I see, this is my favorite, right? Because I mean, a lot of times these are interpretive. They're interpretive by the auditor. They're interpretive by the authorizing official, right? So we're removing a lot of the interpretation into a standard. So using extractor, right? We pulled the start of your control implementation statement, and then taking the other data from the control owners and the evidence and everything that's available inside the AI tool, inside the platform. Now you write a comprehensive control statement. So it will take a look at the statement you have already, which we got from extractor, and then make recommendations on how to tune it. And then it will tell you if you're missing the mark, right, as your recommendations. And then you could choose to use the statement or tweak the statement in the auditor. So it allows you a one-stop shop to get a well-written control implementation statement across either the main control implementation statement or each individual part inside the control. So you are using AI to gather the data. You are using AI to write the data. And I mean, anybody who has had to do, say, let's say a CM6 or CA8, right? Control in a family group, or any one of the privacy pillars in a SOC 2, or in ISO, you have, nuances around clean desk policy and various other things. You can now make sure that you hit the exact wickets of the control implementation statement required by the control, and AI is going to make sure that you stay in the best practices. And this is going to save you an immense amount of time, right? It's going to save the guy writing the plan, and it's going to save the reviewer, right? Anybody who's doing security control assessments or validations also is going to save a bunch of time with author and then auditor, which we're about to talk about. So, I mean, how many times have you gone back as a manager and looked at the human error factor? Because if you're going blind on writing a security plan with 410 controls or 1,200 controls in some of the DoD ATOs, man, those become very difficult. And even if you're doing a stare and compare, or you have a script and you're writing that stuff over, does it really apply? So you eliminate a lot of the human error this way. You speed up your review and work cycles, and then you just get a better quality product, which rework is the bane of a compliance person's existence. No, that's good enough. Send it back. How many times does it get to a validator or an assessor or an internal auditing team? And they say, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. This just speeds up your end goal of getting it right the first time, which then saves you time, which then saves you money and optimizes your resources. This right here is a force multiplier. If you're a small business, a small market business that's operating with sometimes a team of 1 to 3 people, this could take you, just writing the control implementations could take you up to 4 to 6 months, if not longer, to get them correct and gather the evidence. Using Author, right, and the automation tools in the platform, you're now able to complete. We were able to complete our FedRAMP High package in 2 weeks, which then allowed us to make sure that the evidence was there, that the all of the deltas that could potentially be there, all the gotchas are gone, right? So now it's a matter of you put into it, and then it's being valued at the AI level, and you're just optimizing your return on investment.
Yep. So Dale, I had a mentor who taught me, like, whether you're doing these types of packages or it's an RFP response, these things aren't they're not written to be read, they're written to be graded. Right. And so what this does is try to make it as easy as possible in the auditor to grade it. Did you hit everything the controls asked for? Were you very specific on who, what, where, when, why, how? Right. So they can just very quickly check, and work their way through it. Invaluable. It's like having a free consultant standing over your shoulder with a master's in this stuff, just telling you exactly where you're going to get in trouble and then helping you fix it.
Exactly, right. And then the other side of that is, you now take away the guesswork from your lower level guys, right? They now have a tool, to your point, that is professional services that can optimize the output and then roll right into auditor. Uh, at the auditor level, this will help you to identify control gaps. This is basically, we've showed this to a couple internal auditing teams, and it's changed the way that they're doing internal audits, right? So, and identify all your control gaps, give you areas for improvements, and then it just gives you a better product in the end, because you're auditing yourself before an auditor looks at it. So, and if you do the entire compilation of AI that we've just discussed, right, you have your explainer gives me a ballpark of what I'm doing, right, and what it is I'm writing to. Your extractor takes the work you've already done in gathering all these policies and the money you've already spent there. It gives you actionable control implementation statements to about a 70 to 80% accuracy based on your policy. Then you're closing that accuracy gap to 100% using the author that is taking all the data from internal to the platform and using it against best business practices to give you a well-written control implementation statement. And then the auditor at the end here saying, you might have made this mistake. Maybe you ought to tune this, or maybe you ought to tune this. And it gives you a score, right? So it bases it off a score of up to 100 being the highest, of, if an auditor were to review this, what would the feedback be? And is this good enough to get you past an audit? And I just think that, and then you're really freeing up staff to do other things. So nobody steals compliance work, right? They just pile more on top of it. And then your compliance requirements become more complex, and they become harder to achieve, and they become more subjective. So AI eliminates all of the guesswork, right? And it makes it easy for companies to meet the requirement that is consistently changing and is a moving target for small businesses, and, well, for any business, all the way up to the federal government's enterprise level customers, to accomplish. So this just, I can't tell you the amount of time I saved, right? My FedRAMP package would have easily been, 6 to 9 months to write, particularly with the change from Red 4 to Red 5 that happened last June. I was able to accomplish this using these tools in 2 weeks, and have a verifiable product that we went to audit with and pass, right? So it's just a force multiplier. It optimizes all of your resources in your company and then maximizes your output and minimizes the surprise.
Yeah. The
Hey,
thing for me
hey
in my
Dale.
old job,
I'm sorry, Travis. I just want to ask Dale a quick question. So, can you give a quick, since we're on this topic, can you give a quick rundown of all the different frameworks that you guys work with, or is there a published list, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so you can see the published list of our frameworks on our website. We have over 67 out of the box frameworks, and they cover everything from the financial side, the Cyber Risk Institute's 4 levels. We have FFIEC, we have the ISO series, um, uh, we have NIST 800 171, we have NIST 853 series.
You got
Travis, any big ones
you
I'm
got
missing?
yeah, of course, since
DOD,
we're on a
CMMN,
CSA call, we also have the CSA CCM as
CCM.
well,
Okay,
their matrix, all the NIST variants, the DoD catalogs. Basically, if it's a mainstream US cyber regulation, we have it. And through our partnership with UCF, we support over 1,000 international regulations as well.
okay, and you also do, I guess, DOD stuff also, correct?
Yes,
Or
sir.
CMMN, right?
CMMC being a great example of that one that folks are tackling right now. But I kind of view this one in my old life. By the time I was done, I'd have to wait literally months for an auditor to have availability to even look at the package. And it would take them weeks to go through the evidence, the controls, write a report. In the amount of time you can go to your Keurig and back, you can get a detailed audit report available to you anytime. So it's like taking an open book test. You know exactly what your grade would have been. You can go back and change all your answers for everything you screwed up. Just makes it so much easier to get through this in a painless way where there's no surprises.
Yeah, I feel like I'm always prepared, right? I always have answers to the questions through our AI interfaces.
All right, so how does that equate to cost savings? So show me the money.
So let's just talk about a team of three, right? Team of three. I have never and I've never heard of or never been part of anybody who was able to achieve a FedRAMP high impact certification with a team of three, right? So you can decrease the amount of people in your team by gaining AI driven efficiencies, right? And that's the big thing right now is how do I gain efficiencies? AI is replaces people, or I'll say that better, it optimizes the workforce so that the people that you have can do what they need to do and accomplish other tasks while AI is doing what it's doing. And it's doing it faster and it's doing it cheaper. And it's a lot cheaper to maintain an AI interface and all of the technical solutions that go behind bringing AI to the customer than it is full time employees to accomplish the tasks that you have. So you're saving money through full time employees, and you're getting more efficiencies. It's less rework. So every time that you have to rework a control, that's an hour, right? That's a compliance analyst time of at least an hour. And then if there's a repair that needs to be happening in the network somewhere, then your control owners have to go back and fix it. This optimizes all that. It brings everything to the front, and your return on investment really becomes I don't waste time. My people are doing what I need them to do, and not doing redundant compliance work that takes 5 people to get an issue resolved. I can now resolve that issue with one person. And you're just getting a higher accuracy of work on the output.
So let me interject a question here. So what you got a compliance team doing this work, they're becoming more efficient. They can refocus, I like to use the word refocus their abilities to communicate these controls outward. So these controls can then be shared as milestones are achieved, things of that nature.
Correct. And really, what it's doing is breaking down silos. So I think all of us have either have had this problem or have this problem currently. Your security team is in one silo and they're operating, doing what they're doing. Your compliance folks are in another silo. Then you have your executives who are working in another silo. The use of AI, right, will bring efficiency to that and give you streamlined benefits that just shares this across your control owners all the way up to your executive levels, right, through a single pane of glass. And AI brings all of that to get together. And then you take your complexity because it's not getting easier, guys. And I mean, we're talking about AI, but AI adds another level of complexity to the compliance environment. This makes it simple. This makes it easier to achieve your business outcomes. So compliance no longer becomes a cost center. It becomes a value center. It becomes a way where security and compliance give you good business outcomes through the use of AI. And that's, I think, is everybody's goal.
Yeah, so I come from the world of venture capital, and what we like to see from companies that we engage with is, that nimbleness, that ability to quickly adapt to change. And I think what you're talking about is giving companies that extra strength. So there is a cost saving in terms of manpower, but I think the better part is, like you said, it becomes a value center for companies to be able to respond quickly to changes that are out there, requests that are made, maybe even go into new areas that they didn't think they were able to do due to the overhead that was required to, document that process.
Yes. So let me give you like a real world example here. When you have to go write all your controls, let's say it's for CMMC, it's 110 controls. You might spend $30,000 to bring in a consultant to spend weeks with your team in a conference room, collecting data to build out your package and go through all those things. What we've done instead is in 30 minutes, you fill out an onboarding questionnaire. You tell us about your stack. We take you to lunch. You come back, multi-hundred pages of documentation built off best practices trained by our models for your precise stack is all built out. So literally put 30K back in your pocket. And FedRAMP, it put 250K back in your pocket for the same thing, right? So it's a order of magnitude force multiplier. And then if you think about doing the same thing for, let's say you're a software company like us, every company we deal with has a security questionnaire. Well, all the answers to that are in our corpus of control attestations. There's no reason it can't just fill it out for us, right? So when you start multiplying all these things up, it just puts significant time back in your hands and lets you focus on making all those security things true, not just doing the paperwork and checking the boxes.
And at the executive level, it increases confidence, right? So there is some freedom and understanding that your team has the right tool, that is doing the right thing and producing the right outputs. And now you can confidently move move in the direction that the business needs to go, understanding that in your wake, you're compliant, you're secure, right? And it's reportable in near real time. And right through the use of AI, you're getting dynamic operational control assurance, which allows you to take a snapshot of time in your enterprise and understand I'm in good shape, or understand in near real time, I have a problem and here's where I need to focus my energy.
All right. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to hit some of our sort of wrap up slides and summary pieces. So thank you, Dale, for giving the practitioner's perspective. But we just think intelligent AI and being able to train models to do these sorts of things is the future. A lot of these things move so fast that just having an AI that never sleeps, that never gets tired, because frankly, most of the time, these adversaries are overseas, they're in other geos. They don't care about your holidays or the fact you're sleeping. Like it can just surface things and route them and fix them much, much faster than human labor can do. Also, to train these models, we're a big compliance as code shop. So we built our entire stack on OSCAL, the Open Security Controls Assessment Language. Very scalable machine readable framework. So think YAML, XML, JSON, way to represent all your artifacts so that you can do automated checks. So I think of it like a software compiler for your code, but instead of compiling code, it's compiling your risk and compliance package. Are you within the boundaries? Does this look okay? It's doing a lot of checks you'd have to do by hand that it can do automatically. But for us, it also gives us precision in how we train our models so that we can do the things we do to generate those efficiencies. So really like compliance as code. Mention OSCAL, check it out if you haven't already. OCSF is another good one, the Open Cybersecurity Schema Framework for Data Portability. It's a Linux Foundation project. We built the world's first translation layer between OCSF and OSCAL. And what that means is self-updating paperwork. We can take data you already have, update your paperwork, run it through the compiler, see if you're still in tolerance. Just sort of next-gen approach to how you think about doing your reps and certs. But at the end of the day, whether you like AI, it scares you, it makes you happy, anywhere in between, the truth is the AI arms race has already begun. At the nation state level, certainly the attackers are increasingly using AI. So if you're not going to use it, you're going to be at a disadvantage to those that are. And so we think we're moving very quickly into AI attacks, AI defends, the best AI wins. And so increasingly, you got to be able to handle that speed of change to react to how quick they're able to tune their attacks and models. So if you listen to CISA, from the time an exploit was first identified to being active in the wild was taking weeks. It's now taking hours with AIs. They're training AI to exploit these things so much faster. So we live in an increasingly dangerous world. And so leveraging AI as a force multiplier for your team is going to become a business imperative for you if it isn't already. Also, we think there's a symbiotic relationship between security, compliance, and AI. For a long time, compliance was this after the fact thing you had to do to check the box to get on a network, but it was a high cost, low value exercise in the mind of many CISOs. By doing it the right way and then measuring, am I actually doing what I say I'm doing on paper? How do I turn a work of fiction into nonfiction? That's where the value's at. Because if you actually follow that roadmap and you know that you're in compliance, you have a much better chance against the adversary doing it that way. And so we think AI can be a secret weapon for how you actually increase security versus just increasing compliance. Because at the end of the day, what we want is less operational risk in our environment and to our business, and AI can be a force multiplier there as well. And so the last bit is just get started now. It will become commoditized. So there's a time in the future where everybody will be doing this. That time is not today. And our last survey, couple of weeks old, only 18% are currently using AI to drive their program. If you fast forward that 5 years, it's going to be 80%. And so in that window, you have a chance to have a competitive advantage, to return capital to your business for things that drive you forward, to reduce your cost basis. And you're going to be ahead day one of 82% of your competitors if you do it right now. And so I had an old boss who told me the best plans start with the truth. You can accept it now, you can accept it later, it'll still be true. The best companies realize the truth earlier when it's cheaper and easier to fix, and use it to get ahead. And so I just encourage you to start thinking about, of the areas you've seen, maybe not all these apply to you, but where could you start using AI in your business today to support these goals? Where might better tooling be a force multiplier for you? And if you found anything interesting, I know we didn't have a lot of time here today. We're about to conclude our time together on the formal part, get into Q&A with you. But there's a lot of additional resources here. So we quoted our continuous monitoring report. So if you want to know the state of the art of the industry, who's doing what, where are they at, and kind of benchmark yourself, this is a great short report you can read and get a better understanding of the market. Also, if you want to learn more about sort of where AI can help solve compliance challenges, we have a variety of white papers and slick sheets out there that you can peruse at your convenience. Also, CSA itself is helping educate the market on this. Various working groups that are ongoing around AI governance, compliance as code, variety of things. CSA has always been a thought leader in this space. And so you can get plugged into any of those communities. We're proud to be a CSA member here at RegScale and to support those endeavors. And with that, that'll conclude our remarks. We're right on time here. Wanted to leave 10 to 15 minutes for questions from the group.
Okay, well, I want to thank Travis and Dale for the presentation. If you opted in for any additional information when you registered for this, your information will be provided to RedScale and shared with them. I'll now open the floor to any questions. You can type them in the chat, and what you call it. We can continue to go forward with some questions. I have a question that I want to start out with myself, which is what I mean. I know you touched on this briefly during the presentation, but what's the implementation process like? What kind of support and training does RedScale provide? So how do people get onboarded into this process?
Yeah, so the easiest way, we're a software as a service company that's through our FedRAMP audit. So the easiest way is to not deal with it at all. And so we would just spin it up for you in SaaS, 30 seconds after a PO sign, you're up and running. We know that not everybody can get there from here. You may need to run it in your environment. Maybe you're on a classified network or an air-gapped ICS network, something that doesn't make sense for SaaS. We can also deploy where you are. Our customer success team has training. They help with installs, the initial configure, data loading to get you from where you're at, maybe in Word documents and spreadsheets, into a more automated state. So we can give you as much or as little hand-holding as you want to help accelerate your journey. But the fastest path is to let us manage as much of it for you as we can in SaaS and get you off to the races quickly.
Okay. Another question is, what kind of metrics can we gather from AI, and how can we measure it with your tool?
So I'll let Dale start with that one as a practitioner. You can kind of share your experience, then I'll tell you a little bit about what we built in the platform.
So yeah, so what I have done is I've done a lot of the custom dashboarding. So from my security tech stack, I bring in a lot of the standard metrics, right? Yeah, the time to detect, time to mitigate, that type of thing. And then I have my metrics in my dashboard around how long it takes to actually get a control implementation deployed, and then what incidents I have open, right? So, and all of that are done in custom dashboards in the platform. I've also used AI to kind of score out, right? In testing, if I use AI, how long does this do? How long does it take versus if I do it manually, right? So then we capture those metrics in our custom dashboarding as well. And a lot of those are available on the website if you're interested in grabbing them from a from a new customer perspective.
And so
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Travis.
Inside the platform, there's a lot of metrics around quality, completeness, other things that the AI and our various tooling will give you in dashboards and reports. One of the coolest ones, though, is every time you use an AI feature in RegScale, it calculates how long it would have taken you to do that by hand with manual means using your labor rates, and then translates that to an ROI meter. So if you've got a CFO who's saying, hey, why would I pay for a tool in this space? You have a hard time justifying security tools in your organization. We've got built-in ROI calculators that will just give a running meter about all the time and money that you're saving that you otherwise would have spent on labor.
And then I'm going to ask both of you. I mean, maybe Travis, better for you, but in your crystal ball, where are you heading with AI development in this tool? You have anything you'd like to premiere or a kind of forecast, I should say?
Yeah, I would say we are 20% of the way into our AI journey. Gartner's written about us 17 times in the last year as a disruptor in the GRC space, mostly because of what we can do with AI that orgs are struggling to do manually today. That being said, there's a lot of folks thinking about this space and AI, so we are going to continue to add new capabilities. As an example of that, automated evidence evaluation that can read the actual screenshots and logs and give you a confidence score of whether they actually are valid evidence for that control. Things that just historically have not been possible to do are becoming possible to do. So I think you're going to see nothing but increased AI features. And in addition, instead of just everybody's adding intelligent chat to their applications, I would argue that's already commoditized. The future is intelligent agents. So our author is an agent. You just give it a little bit and then it writes an entire package, not one prompt on your behalf. Same thing with auditor, that's an agent. Evidence will be an agent. The other thing people struggle with is like how I'm drowning in vulns and posture misconfigs and all this stuff. How do I rack and stack it and route it? We'll have an AI agent that does all that for you. So I think the future is agentic, where you're going to continue to have more complicated, sophisticated, highly trained agents that do things that were historically done by humans. That being said, I do think we are in the foreseeable future in a human aided AI, meaning that we're not trying to replace all the humans. The humans still need to make risk-based judgments, give inputs to the AI. What we're trying to do is supercharge humans, because there aren't enough trained professionals in the industry, even if we had unlimited budget, which we don't, to get all the work done. So how do we supercharge folks and help them work like they're 3 or 4? So like that's what we've done with Dell as CISO. You know, it's like having 3 or 4 CISOs working for you instead of one.
Okay, and then my go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would add in the near future is people are nervous about AI, right? And they don't want it to not have control of it. So they want to be able to monitor it and see, what's going on in the large language library or the large language model. So what we're doing is moving towards bringing that internal, right, vice external, and we're keeping everything inside the boundary of the box, and it will use your data that you have in the platform, and now your platform becomes the large language model. So all of your pertinent risk data, your issues, all of the things that you have now live in the platform and are updated and controlled by you, right? So nobody wants to worry about OpenAI, and they want positive control on it, because an attacker only needs to get right one time. We've got to be right all the time. So we're going to give you positive control over the AI and help you use it and populate the data so that you have confidence that nothing bad could potentially happen, which is really kind of where one of the AI limitations are.
So I have another question, which is, you had mentioned a single pane of glass, which is a hot topic that's coming on. So what other tools do you integrate with that kind of reduce the workload?
Yeah, so we integrate with, I think, close to 100 commercial tools out of the box at this point. Everything from your scanners, so think Tenable, Qualys, Rapid7, Wiz, that world. Your endpoint detection, CrowdStrike, Defender, those types of things. Your hyperscalers, which have a lot of security telemetry themselves, so Google, AWS, Microsoft. Your SIM tools, where you may be aggregating data, your CMDB tools like ServiceNow or an Exonius, and then your BI tools. So we are also a feed to downstream BI reporting, other things. So our goal is to be sort of a GRC mesh architecture. We sit in the center of your stack, pull data you already have, make self-updating paperwork, use AI to summarize, route it, make intelligent use of it, and just have a smarter, faster, more real-time system.
Wow. Well, I think this was great. I mean, I learned a lot personally, and I think it's a sea change in how we do things. So, and a sea change for the positive. I know, like you guys have touched on it many times before, the AI is scary. It's an unknown, but I think it's, like you said, a force multiplier. It gives companies the ability to be more nimble and to do that with the manpower they have, and maybe even get a further grip on their ability to adapt to the increasing need to be compliant and demonstrate that with various organizations and frameworks that you have to comply to. So I want to thank Rich Gill, and I also want to thank all the participants who signed up to come and showed up, I should say. Also, your support for us in the chapter is important, and we appreciate it. As a quick reminder, on May 14th, we have another Lunch and Learn in our AI series. The focus of that event will be using AI to ingest and orchestrate data security at scale by CETU. They're a small company. They're basically an SIEM, and this is kind of the theory that we see what's coming about, which is all this stack integration that's happening with AI. So we're trying to hop on board and make sure that that gets explained to our members that are out there. This session will focus on old school data systems, which can keep up, and share some quick tips on filtering out the log noise that you get, and show how to make sure AI life is easier in finding important signs and spotting security threats faster. Again, it's faster and more important. If you'd like to attend, you can go to our LinkedIn page for the Cloud Security Alliance of Delaware Valley and click on the post to find out. Again, that's our Cloud Security Alliance Delaware Valley LinkedIn page. We have a post up there that'll kick you to registering for that event on May 14th, again, 12 noon to 1. Again, I want to thank everyone. Again, a reminder, there'll be this recording will be made available and sent out to everybody. The continuing ed credit will be issued to everybody in attendance, and we will also have a copy of the slide deck, particularly that last slide where we had a lot of QR codes that you could find out more information on. Again, thank you, Dale, Travis, for everything you did today. It was a really eye-opening presentation, and we're all appreciative. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for
All right.
having us. You guys have a great day.